The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
Hey everyone, joining you one last time this year from the dorms at St. John Fisher. I'm Katherine here with Ryan O'Halloran from the Buffalo News. Ryan, we're going to talk about a few things, what we've seen out of training camp, what some of the injuries mean, but also what this preseason game coming up means. Let's start with that. The starters are going to play about a quarter of the game. That's what Sean McDermott told us on the last day of camp. What do you make of that?
Well, good to join you. Mark Gaughan, I think, is at Saratoga this weekend, so he's obviously winning.
Yes.
So he'll be back next week. I thought yesterday that there was a chance that Josh Allen would play in the first preseason game for the first time since 2019, and I go back a couple of times to what Sean McDermott said last October, and they were 3-1 or 4-2 or something like that. And he was not happy with the quality of play. He said they'd only put like one good game together out of the last five. And, I thought about that today when Sean said Josh Allen and the other starters will play against the Bears, is there's a sense of urgency combined with a lot of new players. They want to get on the same page. There's going to be no time for experimentation in week one because you got the Cardinals on Sunday, you got the Dolphins on Thursday night. So I think this is a sign by Sean McDermott. I'll say a sign of two things. One is he wants to get off to a better start, crispness-wise, if I make up a word. And then secondly is maybe he doesn't play him against Pittsburgh next week after going hard in a joint practice. I know down in Jacksonville, that's what they're doing. They're going to play this week, joint practice, not playing the game, and then playing the third game. So McDermott still has some options. But you were there also today. Were you surprised?
Not really. I think at the very beginning I was a bit, just because there's always that risk of injuries. For Josh Allen in particular, I think I was more surprised than some of the other starters. But I get what McDermott is saying about, there are so many new faces here. They haven't had that much time on task, and you want to have some of those live reps. So I do, I understand where it's coming from. I think it makes sense, even though there is kind of the risk reward there.
Well, it took 2 minutes, 19 seconds before Katherine dropped her first McDermottism. Time on task.
I know.
I'm going to use that later when we talk about the safeties. But I think on offense, you have a new center, Connor McGovern. And everybody says, well, he's been in the system. Well, that's great, but he still hasn't hiked the football to Josh Allen in a live situation. So I think, doing some audibles, doing the snap, doing the shotgun snap, I do think it'll be useful. And let's face it, Josh Allen is seventh-year guy. He knows how to protect himself out there. Joe Brady's not going to call a lot of elaborate stuff. Get out there, get their work in. And I think plan A for the Bills, if you had to draw it up, is they have like an 11-play opening drive that takes like 7 minutes. And McDermott goes, all right, seen enough, out.
Yeah, I think he did say a quarter, give or take, so it's pretty flexible. I think it'll be helpful for the receiving core, especially just to get more of those reps with Josh in live action. So, some understanding there that they'll get some of this taste against the Bears. For the defense, though, too, there's been so much turnover there that I think it's really important. Like you said, we'll get into more of those injuries a little later, but for guys who are going to be playing just to get some of that time to gel together.
Yeah, Taylor Rapp at safety, communicating with Terrell Bernard at linebacker. Taylor didn't have to do that last year. He was a dime guy. Bernard was communicating with Poyer and Hyde, so I think that's important. You want to see a lot of Kaiir Elam, I think, just to see if he's carried over some of his solid practices into the game and maybe can challenge Christian Benford. And then, I don't think you need to see Von Miller or Ed Oliver or Matt Milano, but that gives a chance for like a guy like Dwayne Carter inside on defense, a rookie, to play a lot. So, defense, a lot of those starters are set, but sort of that, that's a rotational unit on the line. So who can carve out, who can be one of those, the fourth guy, fifth guy, sixth guy to play in week one.
One other thing we'll be watching for is Bobby Babich is going to be calling the defense in the preseason game. They still haven't fully determined who between Babich and McDermott is going to call for the rest of the season, or at least that is what we've been told. Sean McDermott said it's still going to be ongoing evaluation after this game. Ryan, do you buy that?
Well, I don't buy that because Bobby Babich had options this offseason. And before those teams he interviewed with hired coordinators, he was hired here. The only conspiracy theory is that Sean McDermott thinks by not naming a play caller, he's going to make other teams guess about who's calling the plays. Well, it's a Sean McDermott defense. So if I was him, I would have named Bobby Babich the play caller in OTAs, to let the guy enjoy it while there wasn't a lot of pressure. And now that changes the tone of what he can talk about and talk about his guys, I think, more freely. So, I mean, it'll probably announce it here maybe before the Pittsburgh game, maybe the after the Pittsburgh game. But any fan who's been out here for a training camp practice, there's no mistake who's running this defense, and it's Babich. Sean McDermott is the CEO. He is overseeing both sides. So, I mean, it's an opportunity for Bobby to call from upstairs, which I think is a good thing as well. Yeah, another topic, it's gaining momentum here at training camp, Katherine, is injuries. I mean, the Bills are banged up, and they're stacking up at safety. They're stacking up at receiver. If you had to look at those list of guys who haven't been practicing lately, who are a couple that stand out, that maybe not concerned for week one, but concerned that how much they'd be able to play in week one.
Yeah, I think the new guys, especially Chase Claypool, stands out to me. I believe he practiced 4 practices of training camp, didn't even get the pads on with the team, and this is a new team for him. So Sean McDermott talked today a bit about how there are challenges there of, he's trying to get mental reps, but still you're not getting the chemistry on the field with guys, with Josh Allen in particular. And so Chase Claypool, I think that's one that stands out to me as he tries to figure out how he could fit into this wide receiver room.
Yeah, real quick on Claypool. I mean, he's missed 9 straight practices through Friday. That is, for a backup guy, that's 185, 190 reps. So that's a lot of time. And you've seen Valdez-Scantling sort of rise up in the last couple of days. He had a slow start to camp. You see MVS catching some more passes. So Matt Collins missed practice on Friday. So they got some depth issues just about here on offense. But I'll switch it over to safeties.
Yep.
Going into camp, I thought plan A was suspect, which would be Rapp, Edwards, Bishop, as the top 3. Well, Mike Edwards, hamstring, he hadn't practiced a week and a half. Cole Bishop has shoulder, he's been out a week and a half. And now you have Taylor Rapp and DeMar Hamlin with Cam Lewis, probably your third guy at this point. Kareem Jackson, they signed him. He was unsigned, and he could be in the mix. He's already working with the 2. So that is, if Sean McDermott was sitting with us and I said, rank your concerns, he's got, I think he would say safety number 1, because that is such a high-level communicative position for his defense with Bernard at middle linebacker. So, I mean, if they had to roll it out right now, it would be a Rapp with Hamlin. And I think ideally they wanted to work Bishop in, but if Cole gets healthy and gets that time on task, maybe he's an option for week 1. But it looks a little clunky right now on that back end.
Yeah, you mentioned that communication. I know we talked about that some last week with Mark, but I think just kind of what that position means to the defense can't be understated. And especially when, you're seeing the turnover with both Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, it's how do we get guys to almost read each other without having to talk as quickly as kind of those guys had it together as veterans.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're getting the same kind of questions is about Micah Hyde. I think that door is closed. He probably would have been back here already, even if he was not practicing, just to get up to speed and get his conditioning right. He had a couple of stingers last year. I don't blame him for not wanting to play more. The other name is Justin Simmons, free agent, visited New Orleans this week. It just doesn't seem like the money is right and the fit is right for Simmons here in Buffalo, or else that probably would have happened by now.
Micah Hyde, I don't know. I disagree a little bit. I agree that I totally can see why he would want to walk away. Those injuries are so serious. He talked about, wanting to not hurt himself more for his family last season and looking at the big picture. But I don't know. Part of me can see a guy being ready to come a little after training camp if the team still needs him then.
So that's going to be the news story on Labor Day.
I just backed myself into a corner of I'm going to be working on a holiday.
I need 6 days and I'll be ready to go for week 1. So that would be the break glass in case of emergency move, I think.
Yes.
But it certainly would bring some juice back to the locker room. So safety issues definitely high on the Bills' worry list halfway through camp.
Like I said at the start, this is the last time we're joining y'all from the dorms at St. John Fisher. Finally getting out of Pittsford, which has been lovely, but I'm ready for my own house at this point. I'm sure players are too. Ryan, as they end this section of training camp, the Rochester part, what are some of the big picture takeaways you had of what you saw from the team here?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. One is they seem to be grasping the information they're being given. You did not see them start drills over. You did not see Sean McDermott blow the whistle, gather the team together, and basically tell them to get their you-know-what, either you-know-what. And so that means they haven't had a lot of pre-snap penalties. There's a couple of skirmishes, but guys are sort of protecting each other that way. There's none of that nonsense. So that was one team-wide takeaway. The other one is this passing game is going to be pretty interesting to me. It seems like it's a lot of stuff to the perimeter, and maybe they just haven't gotten to the downfield stuff yet. And we're not giving away scheme stuff here, but I think there's going to be a heck of an opportunity for Curtis Samuel in this offense. So if I had to pick one player on offense, he literally lines up all over the place. And you can see him in motion, running deep routes, medium routes, taking the handoff, trick plays maybe. So I think Curtis is going to have a lot of touches, even if he doesn't, maybe lead the team in receptions amongst the receivers. So those are just a couple on offense.
Yeah, I agree with that, just kind of what we've seen so far. Something that stood out to me was Josh Allen talking about the identity of the team the other day. He was saying he thinks they found it already, or at least part of it, which I think is ahead of schedule they were on last year, where they were still kind of evolving a bit. But he was saying, he thinks that the guys they have in the locker room are very smart and tough, was the phrase he used. And he said he thinks there's a different vibe at this point with this team, and I think that's a really good thing. Some of that could just be training camp mantras, but I think, for your quarterback to say at the end of, again, this section of camp that the team has found some of its identity compared to this time last year, I think that bodes well for them.
Well, and when you move on from personalities, the locker room is going to have a different vibe. And Stephon Diggs, for all his production, it just felt like this team was walking on eggshells, waiting to see how he would react to this. How does he react to that? Oh, Steph is good. Well, we have to be nice to him. We have to praise him. Well, how about scoring some touchdowns? That ultimately is why he's not here anymore. So I think you have a locker room that is run by the quarterback. And you talk to guys who said that he's really increased his vocal leadership in terms of the meetings, practice field, and even in the locker room. So, this is what's going to be fascinating a couple weeks from now is who the captains are.
Yes.
I got my thoughts. I think there are a couple of locks. Allen on offense, Bernard on defense. I'll start with those two. But who are these players rallying around and to think that they deserve C's on their uniform in week one? So that's the identity part. I think internally that can be true. The identity of this offense, defense. We're looking at 4, 5, 6 weeks in the season, and they would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned the captains and how that leadership has seen some turnover too. On the defensive side as well, I would say, Terrell Bernard has stepped up so much. Taron Johnson is another guy who's been here longer but has been talking about wanting to be more vocal, understanding that he has to have a bigger leadership role on this team now that he's, one of the longest tenured players on the team. So I think some of that turnover has led to guys stepping up, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and Johnson should be that guy because I think he does fit that role. I hope they don't have 8 captains. Let's go 6. 2 offense, 2 defense, 2 special teams. And for me, that would be Johnson and Bernard if they limited it to 2. Von Miller, his leadership will increase if his production does. And then I think, the other guys, just don't really, Matt Milano is a leader by action, not words. That's fine. I think Ed Oliver belongs in that category. Daquan Jones doesn't need a C. to lead on defense, and so I think they can. I think what Sean McDermott can do is he can lean on a lot of guys, offense and defense, if something needs to be said.
Yeah, and that'll be cool to see that evolve a little bit more. We're still a few weeks out from that, I would guess. But we will be back with y'all throughout that. Both Ryan and I are going to be writing a little bit more from this portion of training camp. I'll have some camp superlatives coming out later. Ryan, you've got some columns you're working on, so make sure you're reading buffalonews.com and subscribing to your podcasts wherever you get them. We'll be back next week with more podding, so see y'all then.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.